And then I will pass the facilitation baton to Nikki today. I think starting next week, we could put in place our facilitation process for these spaces usually, which is basically choosing for every session a new facilitator. We enter a name in the chat without talking to one another, just we feel it out who would be best to facilitate the session, and we enter a name in the chat, we count to three, and then we see who was most voted, and that person is in charge of facilitating the meeting, the gathering for us. So that's usually how we do it. For this week, I think we will give you a chance to keep being welcomed into the space and being guided. And today that will be by the lovely, lovely Nikki. And not by me for many reasons. One, I'm not supposed to be facilitating all of these sessions. And two, I have been fasting and it has been very challenging on me. And so I would very much appreciate having a more listening position today. So that worked out amazingly that Nikki had a lot of plans for this session. Thank you so much, Nikki.
Sure, my pleasure. I started a fast with her, but I stopped after a day, so I'm back to normal. Maybe we can wait a couple more minutes, seeing that we're only 9. See how many people still drop in. And in the meantime, maybe, does anybody have anything to share? A story or a whatever? Michael, we don't hear you. Oh.
Try without your headphones.
He's not muted though.
No, he's not.
Maybe the headset?
Yeah. Try to unplug your headphones. Now you're muted. Unmute yourself though. Nope.
Maybe it works if you exit and then come back again.
That's very suspense. Now I want to know what story he was going to say.
In the meantime, does anybody else have anything to share? What's on your mind today?
I can quickly share that I'm just coming out of one of the most intense meetings of my life, where I have offered to step down from my job to be more. So I'm a part of a management team, and I said I would like to go back into a, let's say, lower position to really be able to focus on all of these things we are currently working on, and not being in management meetings where you are not able to really work on the real life topic, just on power games. So I might today not be so in the mood of speaking, more of listening. I need to digest my own courage.
Wow, I can imagine that. What a meaningful step. Sorry, who was coming in, jumping in?
I just said that was brave. 12 participants.
Okay, in the meantime, Michael's back.
Michael? We can hear sirens. We have the 12 knights. Where's King Arthur?
Today, King Arthur is Nikki.
King Arthur is Nikki, and she has the Grail too. So pass it around.
All right. Well, I see now Michael might not be able to join us with voice today. So yeah, so for today, I was planning a bit of a self-organizing session because we've collected already so many ideas around what kind of stories we want to create on the Miro board, but we haven't really started doing it and coming together in small co-creation or working groups. So that would be the main focus of today, if everyone's on board. But before that, there are a couple of things we can just, a couple of agenda points we can go through. The first one being just a general sharing. What I'm curious what came up for you during the last 2 sessions this week, the inner space and the outer space. If there's anything you'd like to follow up on, we can start there.
I have missed the inner space one because I had to be at another meeting. And I asked myself, is it better not than to look into the recordings or to look into them with regard to storytelling? And I don't have the answer to that one, because observing the session yesterday, the outer space one, there were so many things in the room that have not been yet addressed. And it might be that this was an outcome out of the inner session, which I could only observe because I haven't seen it. So I put it just on the table. I have no clue what would be the better way to do it.
I just wanted to check on the guidance for the facilitation. Is there any kind of limit on that sharing? I had a few things that I wanted to reflect on, but I don't feel clear on how we're moving and what sort of time, how much time for each person, and whether we're passing it on them. Sorry, that may be.
It's just a free sharing.
Okay.
Flow, whatever comes up now, anyone can just popcorn style say it.
Okay. Yeah, for me, there's a big shift in just this whole week anyway. But the inner space I found really interesting in the context of a lot of the conversations we've been having. Because what it brought up for me is the need to really stay with what each of our purposes are. And to really sense into that and to stay with what has incredible meaning. Alongside, you know, the conversations on the forum, which are about commitment and people being loyal to the space. And now the newly forming conversation about really recognizing that a space like this takes a certain amount of commitment just in order to keep up with everything. In terms of the conversation, the changes that are happening, and recognizing that for myself. And yeah, that and the outer space have made me reflect a lot, stand back and reflect a lot about these different values of kind of inclusion and loyalty, and us sensing into what all of those mean. And then also this trend I see in this space, but also in seeds of this, recognizing that we need to sense into where our individual purposes are, where we best fit, where we can contribute the most, and then how that links to the purpose of the group. And that's where I see a lot of lack of clarity, but also a lot of dynamic kind of sensing going on. and challenges for individuals, but also challenges of clarity. Feels to me like there hasn't been that much approach of that discussion necessarily, but a lot of what I see and what I've been reflecting on myself has really been around that. Because on the one hand, I see, you know, people really sensing where they best fit, but sometimes that isn't so aligned with a kind of transpersonal purpose. And we're in such a young phase, that's a challenge, just a challenge of the nature of the space that we're in. We haven't spent much time really talking about what the purpose of the space is in a deeper way, in a more embodied way than just naming that this is developing the game guide and the basic kind of outputs that we're working on. So yeah, really good reflections, and also realizing that I might not have the energy and space to really put into this space, depending on how it ends up turning out. So yeah.
Thank you, Bongi, for speaking to that. How does it land with the others? Any reflections on this?
I try sharing now. I have better internet connection, so I think it's working. Good. Great. So good morning, good afternoon, everybody. So to pick up on what Bonkani is mentioning there, where do I start? So I think I've shared, I had a session with a couple of management consultants around some of the writing that I'm doing, and they've challenged me with the original version of the writing is, can I position it in such a way that CEO and major government leaders can immediately get the significance of where we're at, number one, in terms of the collapse of societies, you know, looking at past historical events. I'm going to go on a bit of a circuitous route here, and then I'll come back to reinforce what Bongani was saying. Anyway, cut a long story short, I've managed now in a very few number of pages to position our human situation in the context of previous civilizational collapses. So we're not looking at climate change, we're not looking at resource depletion, we're not looking at any of the things that people normally take issue on right now. This is at a meta level. And we are so closely repeating patterns that have played out before in history. Now, usually what happens in history is that the civilization isn't able to step up into a higher level of coordination and the civilization collapses. So that's been the repeat of all previous civilizations. And we're part of what SEEDS is the opportunity to bypass that collapse and step into a higher order of complexity. So what we're facing is something so profound, something that has never been done in the history of human civilization. and you know, the fact that we're on the one hand talking about whether it should be a game or something else, when we are literally staring a civilizational collapse right in the face, and the civilization is global, so it affects everybody. So that's the kind of two extremes that I'm looking at it from. And then in the inner space, I didn't join this week because I just didn't feel energetically as if I could face some of the previous sessions that we've had, which don't seem to reflect that level of not severity, because I don't want to make this too doom and gloom, but the sense that I've got from previous inner space work is that there is still a huge amount of hang up around money itself. This is in our individuals, in, you know, us as people, that we haven't fully understood what money is, what were some of the early forms of banking, what's the difference between money and debt, because there's a big difference there. And so even in our engagements in this group, and therefore the stuff that we post on the forum and the way we're just engaging around this whole thing, you know, the endless debates I've seen in Discord about governance and how we make decisions, and it's all so, it feels to me as if it's microscopic when there's this macroscopic thing unfolding around us, and we haven't quite made the connection between these microscopic conversations that are going on and why we're actually doing this. Now, I don't know what the solution is, but I'm just letting you know that for me, I feel this huge tension between the tiny stuff we discuss in Discord and the huge civilizational impact this could have if we shifted the conversation. I'll stop there and just see if there's any resonance in what I'm saying.
Stop the nitpicking.
Thank you, Michael. Bongi, you had your hands up.
Yeah, I won't take much more sort of time or space here, but when you were speaking, Michael, I really thought of one thing that Tyler shared, I think it was yesterday, and it had a big impact on me. He was talking about reading these two books. One was the, I can't remember what the title is, but it's all about how focusing on outputs has caused civilizations and systems to really break down. And the other one was Masanobu Fukuoka, One Straw Revolution. And he was saying how, you know, the one book was very academic. It's studying the whole of society and things that are happening in society, and how we have this trend of increasingly complicated systems. He was using the word complex, but he didn't mean it in terms of natural systems efficiency. It was really in terms of when we focus on outputs and the way that we're functioning now, and the way that bureaucracy and these kind of complication of systems is measurably causes systems to break down. And what it really brought, it really sort of, the conversation was about all sorts of other things. It really pulled the veil out from in front of my eyes of like, yeah, when you look at it on a systems level, this is a challenge. This is a major challenge. And these historical things you're talking about, where civilizations have fallen apart, or whole huge groups of people have just literally turned their backs on the civilization and it's collapsed, is to do with this building up of this complication of bureaucracy. And like you say, this microscopic, dealing with the microscopic aspects instead of the simplicity. And I just love the way it was put in terms of how do we learn from nature, because this is what, you know, Fukuoka's realized. We have all these complicated farming systems, and really you just, at the time, Paolo was giving this analogy of how he was watching these street cleaners outside his window, and just reflecting on the fact that this community was having this talk about how do we clean up the leaves, and we hate the sound of the cleaners. And meanwhile, in the background is this viewpoint that, well, you know, we've cobbled over the roots of the trees and the leaves could be feeding the ground. And it's literally that simple. There's some way of stepping back and coming back to simplicity. And this discussion around our communication and everything, I feel like is a, you know, how do we communicate better, is sort of a sensing towards that. But how can we go further? How can we come back to some environment where we really are focusing on that simplicity and those kind of issues that you're talking about, which really, when I step back and I look at those, it changes my all my little petty problems just, just disappear. And there's real power in that. And I wonder how we can come back to that also in this space of storytelling.
I love that you mentioned the simplicity of it. I'm just going to jump in here, if that's okay. And I feel as if it's my calling, and I hope that doesn't come across in any way egotistical, but because I've been gathering evidence of these collapses of civilization over many years, I think I can tell a very brief story about how they came to be, how the patterns in the past are being repeated now. You know, all the protest, the 1%, all of that, the fact that we have a 1% problem is baked into the system itself. Now, that's no conspiracy. It's just the way it has happened in hundreds of other civilizations. And what we struggle with is just seeing those patterns. And once we can see those patterns, you then see a way forward. And the way forward is exactly what we're working on here. It's the creating a flow out of corporate and government and into grassroots sector. So the very simplistic solution is for corporate to outsource their societal commitment, no, not commitment, their role in society in terms of cleaning up the space, regenerating, outsource that responsibility to us and pay for it because you're able to create that flow of revenue. So we're creating the flow into a different form of money and economics and no debt and all of that stuff. So it's not having a hang up about money. It's about recognizing that these foundational instruments that assisted society to grow to the point where we're at now are good. They fundamentally, well, they're enablers. They can be used for good or bad. Right now, in the systems that are designed, they're used to concentrate resources, which is the same as what every other civilization has done. The 1% problem has been repeated over and over and over again. And it's not, the solution is not to point fingers at the 1%. The solution is to build a parallel system and create the flow into the system. Now, my sense of seeds is that we focused entirely on building a new parallel system, but not at all at how we create flow from one into the other. So the simplistic solution, I think, is to use nature, as you suggested, as an example. And my very simple nature example is the caterpillar to a butterfly. I had the great fortune of spending an entire week with Elizabeth Salturis, who's one of the people who told a version of the butterfly story. And she told me that story over and over and over again over a period of a week, using so many different examples. And so now it's baked into my psyche about how this works. The nutrients running out in the caterpillar as it's dying, the imaginal cells running around in a tiz like we all are. And the only caterpillars that make it into a butterfly are those where the imaginal cells can come together and create flow amongst themselves and build as the rest is dying. So that's the simplistic solution. But now we, the storyteller group, are the ones responsible for giving examples, putting examples out into the world as to how very in concrete, tangible ways we do that. And we use seeds as an example. Now, my only tension is that we're focusing on the tiny seeds related stuff instead of shifting our focus to how do we get those examples out into the world. Tell the stories to the CEOs, to the mayors, to the whatever else that have the capacity to do something, but are so trapped in their worldview that they can't see it. Okay, let me stop there. Thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you, Michael and Bongi, for bringing this very valuable point. And I think we can create the space here to make this shift happen from the minuscule to the big picture perspective. And why not start now?
I want to say a last thing. I fully support what both of you say. And I observe myself as being a bit more the storyteller than the one who is doing the nitty-gritty hypha things. And I feel we need both. We need those who can take up my big visions and storytelling coming out of the field of relationship with money. And we need to, and that's what I really like, Michael, the way you framed it, we need to create the flow. We are somehow, there was something with water in the Discord chat where I didn't have the time. We are the river. And we need to make sure that this river is not polluted by anyone. So we are the stewards of the river. And still out there are so many other things that also need to be there so that we can work. But our responsibility, in my view, or my image, is keeping the river clean. As the storyteller, so have the clear story.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. I suggest we move on. Okay, unless there is something. Javier?
Just before, I was just remembering how I think it was Dan Brown who wrote the Da Vinci Code, or somebody very successful in the writing world, who said like the work of a writer is to edit out 99% of what he writes. And when I hear about the making the flow and the keeping the river clean, I always have that feeling that I thought this was going to be about it. It's like, okay, what we are doing here is not just redesigning, but we are getting rid of debris we are cleaning out. We are not cutting down the old growth, but we are cleaning out the forest. And we can use metaphor, analogies, and all that to actually write down our. I think that works with language, isn't it? Language is primordially is metaphorical. Just that. Sorry. Back to silence.
If I may maybe just build on that, Javier, because the way I'm writing is, for example, I list 10 systems within society. So it's the political system, the religious system, education system, medical system, blah, blah, blah. But it's one line about each of those systems. And then there's a footnote. The footnote expands to a paragraph. The paragraph concludes with a link to a piece of software I use, Rome Research, where there's a whole selection of 10 or more for each system, a whole lot of other research papers, really profound stuff. So somebody can read half a page into what this thing will eventually become a book. And then they can stop on any one of those things and dive into the detail that's just profound. But the problem is when you write a book like that, what is it? Is it a history book? Is it a science book? Is it an education book? Society always wants to categorize stuff, which is why nobody's written a book like this before. Anyway, what I'm suggesting is that as our storytelling thing, perhaps my proposal is that we use the framework that I'm busy writing, and that we do that collaboratively, and we all add our resources into that. Number one, it brings us into this mindset of how significant this work is that we're doing. And number two, it creates a collaboratively created piece of work that keeps the river that Melanie was referring to earlier, keeps the river pure and flowing and functional. We know what the outcome is, which is flow between these three sectors of society, and ultimately to a leap into a higher order of complexity. That's what Seeds is enabling. But getting the story right and telling that, no one person can do it. I'm happy to put the framework together, and then if you're up to it, then whoever wants to works collaboratively on it. So I started with a Medium article that doesn't work for collaboration. I put it into a Google Doc. The new version isn't quite ready for sharing yet. If the group feels that may be a good way forward, I will do that before the end of the week.
Now we're cooking.
Thank you, Michael. Thanks for bringing that rigor. I think it's very much appreciated in this group and beyond. So I think that framework would be very useful indeed. We can build upon. Lala?
Sorry, I'm a little awkward this morning. Is it like the Greek historian, wasn't it like Herodotus, that tells all the mini micro the micro stories, the stories of the everyday, and like it kind of reminded me of that, what you were talking about. And then it kind of sparked, I put together this odd format for a magazine at one point where there was this sort of, and also being a permaculturist and thinking about patterns and understanding that really it's about finding the largest pattern and working back to the smaller pattern. And in this magazine format, I was identifying my own patterns, and then I was doing like definitions on a page or a poem or something. And then I was taking words from that definition and I was making them links to other pieces. And so I kind of saw it as a way for these individual words within this text to lead into a larger world that then expanded. And so that it was a way of like traveling through the text. And it ended up being really capable of multimedia capacity as well. Like you can, you can do a lot of like interdisciplinary stuff with it. Anyway, I've got the model of it, and I don't know if you guys are interested, but it's pretty fun and it definitely begs for collaboration. So I offer that.
Thank you, Tina. Ariane?
Yeah, I think with what Michael and then also what Max was saying, I don't know if this is planned, but I think at some point we should also like assign roles or teams, and just to have the chance to get deeper and everyone can pick his teammates.
I was just going to suggest that, so that's a perfect bridge you're offering here. So my idea was for today to go back to the Miro, look at our boards of post-its for topic suggestions, and then start creating small teams around topics for deeper engagement. So I'm going to share my screen and show you what I mean. I also post a link to the Miro desktop. Do you see this? Okay,
Yes.
perfect. So here you see all the ideas for possible topics we can explore. Now, what's missing is the actual doing of it in groups potentially. So why not just we browse around and pick whichever resonates with us, and then drag it here, writing our names if we are interested in co-creating there. And if somebody doesn't want to fiddle around with Miro, which I totally understand, if you if you don't have the patience, or if your internet or connection is slow, then you can just say it in the chat and somebody will put your name down. Is that clear? Anyone has any questions?
Yeah, that's a lot of options, or am I getting something wrong?
Yes, indeed, there's a lot of options we came up last week. But I think it's better to simplify. So maybe we end up dragging a lot of the post-its over, but then we realize we can, group two together and make it into a bigger topic to zoom out a little. So that's possible.
Yeah, maybe we can streamline by themes, by topics, as you said, and then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Use sacred number 7 options, something like that. 12, 69.
And I was thinking, and you can tell me what you think about it. The most popular topics with the most names around, we can open breakout rooms for right now after we organized and start going a bit deeper into them. So maybe we can open 3-4 different rooms around specific topics and start the work now. Let's see. So competition, collaboration, tension, already there. Creating flow.
Nikki, can you just read out them in the end, and then I will say where I am, because I'm on the phone. I can't work with the Miro, but I feel fully okay to follow and be just 1 or 2 minutes with my own thoughts.
Okay, perfect.
I cannot work with Miro. Nikki, do you know if there is a topic related to the telling of very immediate cases, pragmatic
case studies, you mean?
Case studies, or like the area where we have to deal with the uneducated and with maybe older generations, so we can communicate this.
There is one here, create narratives about implementation of seeds locally.
Okay, that's probably quite close, yeah.
Or you can also just expand on it and make it your own. Just add whatever you think is missing.
Yeah, but I'm happy just to go to a group that chooses that one or something like that.
I wasn't in the last session, so I don't think I have editing rights, so I just asked for it. If anyone could, any of the editors could share it with me, I'd appreciate that.
I cannot see that.
I just did. Tell me if it's working.
Yep, thank you.
Let's see, what do we have so far?
What I was trying to say before is I'm under quite a lot of pressure from some close friends and some acquaintances to explain how, very practical aspects, and very simple questions like how do we use a cryptocurrency like seeds to actually create a campaign. I'm going to the co-proposal thing this evening. Maybe this doesn't belong to this space.
It could be part of the key aspect of regen economics.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
Yeah, can you please put me there? I cannot use my arrow.
Maybe just to add to this, Javier, because there's two ways of explaining it. One is the technical way, and the other is the forget explaining how it works, just here's some seeds and you can go and do something. So I'd love to point you to Carly's work that she's doing in Central America, where she went and funded some local projects. She started off trying to explain to the local community, and it just goes over most people's heads because of the way we think about money. And so she did, she bought some masks, bought some costumes for an annual event using seeds. And that got the conversation started much better than the technical conversation about how does this work. So there's two very different ways of answering that question. I prefer the just go and do something that the community resonates with rather than explaining technically.
Yes, but I have an organization called the Economy for the Common Good. I don't know if you've heard about it. And they they're potentially interested in joining the whole ecosystem. And it's challenging me to basically get acquainted a lot more deeper with seeds, which is good.
As storytellers, we should have access to a beautiful collection of case studies. And I haven't seen anything like that yet, but maybe that's our responsibility. So where have seeds been implemented, starting with tiny, tiny little wins. It doesn't have to be world changing, just very small stuff. And we point people to a nicely documented case study with maybe some video interviews. That's how we're going to get this going. Not technical explanations of how do proposals and all of that. It's way over most people's heads, including mine.
Yeah, I suggested, because I've been writing emails, I was just realizing, well, this could be useful for some people because we don't have to repeat the process. They're asking me, somebody is really good at understanding certain parts of it, but not others. He's an economist, but he doesn't know much about crypto. And then I'm trying to, so I said, okay, I've done this job. Now, if we can put it in the library, I'll probably put it in the library. Yeah, thank you, Michael.
I like the idea, like Michael said, to have a document. And then I heard Tina saying the magazine. What if we really start to combine these two, where you then, Xavier, would have a link to a story, because we need to have the storyline and the stories in the background. Some people will need the example because we have to prove that it works. And with this kind of setup, we can somehow, we have a flow from the words to the project. So we are already then creating the flow. So if needed, I support to bring this in a format which helps.
Thank you.
And I like the idea of the magazine, because that would help everyone to find out where to add their own ideas, like the economist you just mentioned. And I build on Michael, we need just to do it. They need to experience it, and the storytelling should help.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Oh, I learned I shouldn't say should. The storytelling will help.
Bogi, you have your hands up as well.
Yeah, just thinking about these, I really resonate with that, Michael, about the case studies. And I think it goes deeper than that. So looking at these organizations, we are part of a larger trend, the development of DHOs. Like Samara's been talking to organizations recently where they don't define themselves as DHOs, but we see this phenomena, this overall phenomena starting. And one of the aspects that I see of it is, instead of being goal-oriented, again, it's this goal-oriented thing. It's like we kind of behave in business or in reductionist thinking as if we're in an empty vacuum, and we just got to decide where we want to go. And then we imagine that it's as simple as drawing a line to where we want to go. And then we play this game as if we're going to get there. Whereas actually we're in a landscape that's changing constantly, you know, reality, gravity is flipping upside down on us. The landscape is moving about. So the whole game changes to what are the principles that we need to embody, not just as individuals, but as organizations. And that's where I see a big trend in organizations, which is this challenge of how do we embody principles? How do we align around certain principles? Because a principle is something that guides you. But I feel as if a lot of people miss what that really means in an organizational context, because it's not just coming up with some values. It isn't just coming up with some principles of how we function that sound nice. It's something much more alive. It's what are the principles of effectiveness that we can try out and test and then refine and grow. And it isn't just refining and growing them. It's not making a statement. It's actually embedding them in organizations. And this is something real. This is something you see when an organization is really successful. And I see a powerful symbiosis where when I think of this thing of getting rid of the mess, getting rid of cleaning the river, there's something about examples of successful case studies and then looking at what are the principles of effectiveness inside those case studies, inside those organizations. Suddenly everything becomes a lot clearer, a lot simpler. Because we're doing a lot of exploration, and that's what creates the proliferation. You know, when you're exploring, you create all these ideas, and it's very easy to create stories out of the ideas. And then you can create hundreds and millions of stories. But this amazing thing, when something is successful and it's embodied, it suddenly gets simple again. And it's not just a case of, because you're in a magazine, you can tell the story of a successful case study of somewhere where the regeneration is working, and they've used certain aspects of different parts of this regenerative renaissance. They're embodying the future. But I think there's a deeper exploration there, and I think there's a possibility of telling really creative stories. Because once you start telling stories about principles, then you can get really creative about how to explain the principle in a way that's really creative, that really lands. That's one of the powerful things I find about stories, is you tell the story and then you get this aha moment when you're told a really good story. And it's with the principles somehow that I see this opportunity, is to instead of kind of coming in new and explaining, kind of coming up with new ideas, new creative ideas, this going to the essence is finding the embodied examples and then telling the stories of the principles that they embody for others to then use to guide them. I hope that's understandable or clear.
Beautiful. I would just add that maybe the principles, our role is to show how those principles are perfectly in line with evolutionary principles. So in other words, what we're doing is helping communities make an evolutionary leap. It's the imaginal cells in the caterpillar coming together and becoming a butterfly, which is played out in nature. So it's not only the business principles, the community principles, all of those good things, but it's evolutionarily coherent. It's a bit of a mouthful, but you didn't say that, but I'm pretty sure that's exactly the space you were coming from.
I think so.
I would also like to say something. First, I still need access to the Miro board. My name is Sola Petri. And I watched an interview from the guy who designed for Star Wars this Princess Amidala costume. And he said the only original story that you can tell is your own story. And I think there is some truth to it. And for me, it's not really here. Like I had this vision, and Reiki also talked about, of creating this festival and focusing on creating places where people can experience this world already, and they will write their own stories. They will tell their own stories, and I think this is also something very potent. And also finding places where this might already exist, and this probably ties in with the magazine, which I think is quite important. And I'm working on a very similar project with Civil X and the Solarpunk community. They have a magazine called Solarpunk Society. And yeah, I think a magazine is very key to put the focus, especially if we have like this wide movement like Seeds. It could also help like setting the focus and motivating people.
Bogi, do you have your hand up again, or is it from before? Oh, you're still here. Tina?
It's never happened to me on Zoom, but I have a brain fart right now. I'm just like, I can't remember exactly what I was going to say, but it's important, so I'll come back.
So I would suggest we move into the breakouts now, because we have tops 40 minutes, and there are already some very hot topics around here. One is shadow relationship with money, stories, how we enable flow, and renaissancing the meaning of and possibility of art, transcending from ego-centered, money-oriented art. There's another one on financing and art. So I suggest we pick maybe 3, and we start discussing these in more depth. What do you think?
Yeah.
Yep, I think it's a great idea.
Okay, so I'll stop my share, and then if someone can help me with the breakouts, which ones were the most popular?
Nikki, I'm, as I said, on the phone. How many people are we? Do we need really breakout rooms, or is this learning we should do together with the topics? I don't see how many people we are.
We are 12 at the moment.
Okay.
And I figured we can choose 3 different topics to go deeper in for the next 20 minutes or so.
Thanks.
I think we have shadow, flow, and what would be the third one that has the most people? Case studies, maybe?
Yeah. Let's create, rename. So first one is shadow.
Or financing arts has a lot of people too. I don't know. No, maybe a bit less than case studies. Yeah.
So case studies. And then the third one, flow. So I'll create these, and they're going to be open for anyone to join. So you can just go in, explore. If you feel like you've contributed and you want to move on, you can do that as well.
Yes, please feel free to move from room to room. I think that's a good.
So do you see the rooms now?
It says please wait to be assigned.
Wait to be timed.
To be
On the phone, I see all the 3 rooms. So I see 3 rooms where I could go to.
Okay, perfect.
Oh.
Interestingly, on the phone, it works this time.
I don't.
Otherwise, I can assign you to a room. I have that power.
Awesome.
So we have shadow, case studies and coming into flow.
Coming into flow or creating flow? I understood it as creating flows.
Yeah, I can rename it to creating flow.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else
Yeah.
needs support? I can add you to a room if you. Rachel?
Yeah, I'll do the case studies.
Okay. So, 2 case studies.
I'd love to go into flow, Nikki.
Flow.
Yep.
I'll take you there.
Thank you.
And maybe in case I cannot see myself. I am in case studies, Nikki.
Case studies, sure. The shadow is still needing people, if anyone feels called.
I would also go to case studies, and you said we can also switch.
Sure. Cassius? Cassius, are you here?
Account. So this is a massive topic. The reason I'm setting that as a bit of a background is because very soon, I think starting as early as next year, there will be tremendous pressure on large corporates to meet their ESG goals, and they have no idea how to do this. So why I get excited about this is here, if we get our act together and we have a strong enough story to go into corporates and say, outsource that entire commitment and responsibility to us. The pressure is already being put on, not right now, but it will be, being put on these corporates to achieve some kind of measurable goals, not just greenwashing and putting it in their annual reports. But they can't do it. So we have all of the resources, the know-how, the skills, the blah, 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 blah. We just don't have the funding. And so this is a really, really big deal to me that, you know, we're on the cusp. And if we can get this right, we have such a beautiful story to tell, and it's a beautiful partnership between corporate and ourselves. The key mindset we need to get over is that it's not the companies that are, you know, the big polluters. They're not our enemies. They are absolutely how we're going to get through this and make the evolutionary leap to a higher level of complexity. So the idea of flow is so, it's mind-blowingly powerful. And it's our job to tell that story succinctly. Because it is a complete mind shift about how we think currently about how corporates work. So I'm not yet clear on exactly how we tell that story, but I just wanted to just dive in and give a sense of how big this is. It is literally trillions of dollars are going to be released in some way. And if we get our story right, that's where we are sitting. The key is, I think, to use seeds or some mechanism as a membrane, as a filter. So we don't take straight funding into any seeds project. It becomes a fiat liquidity pool. We do all of our stuff in seeds, and where necessary, there's this membrane to exchange seeds into a fiat currency, but it's not the traditional funding mechanism. I'll stop there because I know I dumped a huge amount. Does any of that make sense?
Michael, just to build on this, it's even more real than you were just describing it for Europe, because in Europe we have the EU taxonomy coming very soon. I don't know if you have really deeply looked into that. This means that they will be forced in Europe to go that direction. So it's not just you're sensing that it will come based on Paris and all the stories around climate. It's already real, and we are able to influence it. And the EU taxonomy will be live end of the year, I guess. Yeah. Just to put some flesh on the bone.
The point is that policy changes, big policy changes are coming. There's one particular law that Biden is about to sign into, whatever they call it. And when that happens, it's EU and US. And they're going to be forced to do this. There's no question about it. And most of the companies are going to say, but we don't know how to, we need help. And that's where we step in.
I can share the link later on. I'm just not able to work on different devices right now. But the EU taxonomy will be more or less live end of the year. By the way, one of the 6 points is a circular economy. So they have one of their taxonomies will be circular economy and climate change, climate mitigation. I will share that later.
In Europe, there's a group called R3.0. You're probably familiar with them. They're working on GTAC, Global Thresholds and Allocation Council. So the measurement is all in place. You know, we don't need to understand all of this because it's quite a complicated policy change thing coming. The point is we must know about it, and we must know that it's a very big deal that's coming down here. And how do we position ourselves to be ahead of that curve and ready to step in and be the place to go to for outsourcing when companies need help in this. So the R3.0 organization, I'd love to include them in conversations when the time is right, but they're working on helping companies actually measure their progress. So all of that work has already been done. Just for our purposes, this is a big, big deal.
The missing link is the missing link, meaning all ingredients to do this right now are there, but there is no one capable to bring it to this simple story and to do what Bongi said, show the patterns. And in my way, I would have a kind of blueprint in my head with a great story, which has also been proved already. So that would be my wish list. And I just want to confirm what Michael is saying. We have Seeds has all the ingredients to become that missing link if we do the storytelling right. So we in this group would have really a great chance to give our impulse in the system, and good stories other people take and develop further, and that should be our goal. Shouldn't be that we are the owners of the stories, it's just we bring the stories into the field. That would be my vision.
I think what we can also do.
Hey, Miles, I totally forgot that I have a different call using my Zoom link right now. So could you just email me a Zoom link and we will jump off this one and meet you in another group?
Okay, yep, sure.
Sorry.
There's like, maybe there could be like there's paper money for the currencies we have. What if we had some kind of paper currency, or it doesn't have to be paper, something sustainable that represents it for places that can't necessarily understand or get it, and then have some kind of system to implement or show the way that the background belief system or setup of Seeds. So it's just a thought.
That's an interesting thought. I don't know how that would work. Yeah.
I don't know either, but it definitely needs some space or collaboration within it, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nick, do you want to contribute anything, or are you just observing?
Yeah, I was missing the first half, so I'm not quite sure what you've already discussed, and I'm curious if there is like a framework or a backbone of a new story already forming where you're at.
We were just brainstorming for how to get case studies, and we're very keen on interviewing people who are in the movement longer. And I think this whole topic is very much linked to a kind of magazine where we put things in the spotlight. And then that it's also important where we want to target with this case studies, that it's also to explain the cryptocurrency aspect. And then we just had the idea of maybe it would also be possible to have like a physical representation of seeds. But that's going a bit different direction, which also but ties into making it more experienceable and would also create like more case studies for people. Yeah.
But case studies, you mean in terms of people working on the ground in the different bioregions and introducing seeds? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering about that already for the past few months, because I know there are people working full-time, almost like Franz and Lisa. I'm not sure if you guys have seen them on videos, but they're working across South America. I think they are being supported by a campaign, and they have been doing regenerative work in Guatemala, and now I think they're more on the south. And I was wondering, yeah, what exactly are they doing, and what are they achieving, and if there is any platform for them to already communicate that with citizens, because I'm really not sure if that already exists beyond some meetings that only a couple of people attend, you know.
Yeah, I was presenting a case. I am engaged in communication with several people, but two of them are representatives of very interesting grassroots organizations. One is the Economy for the Common Good, which has about 10,000 members in Europe, and the other one is a representative in Spain from an intentional community who works for the European Eco-Village Network. So, and he knows already about seeds. He's been introduced in a course by Grace Rachmani. So he knows, but he's skeptical of using cryptocurrencies. And what Nikki was saying is very interesting. The physical, because in Navarra, where he is in the north of Spain, there is a valley where they have their own local currency, a social currency that has to do with recycling. If you recycle, then you get these itaris, I think they're called. And so he's using that. He says people don't have the technology and the expertise, and they don't want to know about cryptocurrencies here. You know, we want to keep, you know, away from the screens. You know, we want to use computers less, mobile phones less, and all that. You know, it's that kind of approach. And so I'm engaged in that. A specific conversation is really challenging, but yeah, for example, if I could tell him, look, you can have a piece of paper if you want that represents seeds as well. That maybe that could be a game-changing factor there or something. That's where we were at.
Actually, I designed some builds for my own currency. I can throw it in the Miro board.
I love your art, Arian. It's always so cool and amazing and fun to look at.
Thank you.
You can design the seeds nodes.
Oh, that didn't work. There was just one layer of the whole thing. And here, is there knowledge of, or is there interest in creating a magazine for seeds?
There could
Do you know
be.
this? Anna,
What do you have
maybe?
in mind?
I think if you provide us some sort of a framework for it and put it out there, I think there's going to be interest.
Mm-hmm.
It would be good to kind of showcase the things that are happening. I would love to have attention on, you know, the things that are happening on the ground and the things that people are working towards. I think that would be really wonderful.
And the podcast.
Uploaded the design and the Renaissance art folder. And I think this, yeah, I like this idea, especially in the context of a festival or so. And
that's beautiful.
Where is that? Can you see it?
Yeah, where did you upload it at?
In the Miro board and art folder.
I can access the
It's still a sketch, especially the second one, but I think you can get where I'm going with it.
What is it in the first one? Is it a beetle?
It's actually it's a tree. You can see like it's like a torus, and on top it's an eagle. It's a bit like an Art Nouveau style, but I can see it needs some more refinement. Like it's the roots that's coming out at the bottom, and then you have the sun and the moon in the middle.
Oh.
But it's very sketchy still.
Well, it's beautiful the way it is already.
I love on the other one, the mandala.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Beautifully complex.
I think that like really it's even proven economically, like if you make things beautiful, people use it more often and it creates more flow.
Yes.
And also for architecture and for interior design, people always think about money and functionality, but in the end it ends up not being used. And there's like, even for, I always talk about this in Japan, there's like this high suicide rate, and they were just putting blue light on the train station, and the suicide rate went down 84%. So just by using color and communication through nonverbal communication, you can achieve something that no high-trained psychologist could have achieved. And on the contrary, what are we doing wrong through the worst aesthetics decisions that we make?
I just put a new post-it on our stories worth telling, vital importance of beauty in everything we co-create, because yes.
Could somebody paste the link to the Miro table for me, please, in the chat room?
Sure.
I think I missed the last session or something.
Arian, can I put your name for that story too?
Sorry, that's my name?
Yeah, for the story we might
write. Yes, of course.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Nikki.
So how would we go about assembling such a magazine? Maybe let's talk about the more tangible aspect of it.
Yeah, or maybe just have some kind of structure like art, science, and then case studies or whatever, like present. And this could even be used to even represent people not in the movement, but who are working in the spirit of the Seeds movement. So we just would feature like community projects. Maybe even someone would go there and yeah, get into conversation, and maybe even make a video blog or whatever.
I like that. I like that a lot.
I can also send you an example of the Solar Punk Society magazine.
Yes. Yes, please.
Okay, this is the website. I have to, it's a PDF, it's online, but I have to search for it. Here it is, for most recent magazine, issue 321. It's there.
Two hundred tokens. 200, not tokens, but tokens. I love it. I'm seeing it now. Sorry, guys, I'm late.
that like a monthly thing, a weekly thing?
This is not monthly. I think they are. The first one was in December. If they have 3, it's less.
No,
But
no. I mean for the one that you're bringing here for us to co-create for the storytelling of seeds and what's happening.
I think it depends on the people participating.
Fast.
Yeah, like monthly would be nice, but
Only.
yeah, Moonly, yes, of course.
I think it's
Awesome.
good to maybe aim for like a single issue for now, and then if that proves feasible and popular, then we can reiterate, we can continue.
Yes, and also I think this ties in. All we have right now is like the magazine, the physical one. You can also contribute a physical magazine. It also goes back to case studies, because now we are on the website. We're not really touching it, or we're not really creating like this field and really bringing something into physical reality. And some people do have big problems with technology. And I think this is also something to bridge and say, okay, this is something real, this is becoming real, and you can just hand them a few bills of the seats or a new magazine, and you already have created a story based. Yeah.
Yeah, and we can create objects. You all probably know about the Anastasia flow stream. I like the idea of ritualizing merchandise. And then it becomes something else. Of course, it's not merchandise. But you can actually use very, very artisan, very handcrafted objects to compensate in a way, you know, to give a different flavor of seeds and position us in a different dimension. We should be pan-dimensional, I believe. We should really try everything.
Okay.
We could use seeds. We could really use seeds. Hemp seeds.
Yeah, there's like this idea, guerrilla gardening with seed grenades.
Yeah, yeah. Seed bombs. They call them, yeah.
So maybe it would be an idea. Sorry?
I was gonna ask, do you have by any chance the forum link for our storytelling space or not?
The what link, sorry?
The forum link, forum created by the discourse forum. He created a dedicated space for storytelling in theory, but I can't find it.
Yes. But if you're already registered, then he needs to invite you into the space. Otherwise, this doesn't work. But I put it here.
Into the dedicated storytelling space, you need to be invited again?
Well, yeah, because if you're already, the link that he posted is only works if you're not registered yet. But if you tell Apostle, then he's going to invite you.
Oh, okay, I found it.
I see, yeah. It's only, but you can just click on seeds, and if you logged in, you're there. It's explorers.joinseeds.earth. Did you find it? Ah, it's already there. No, this is the game guide, actually. Just post that.
So how shall we move on from here? What do you guys suggest? We could create a shared doc and start drafting, putting ideas.
Yes.
Maybe creating, I think a kind of framework would help us, different topics under which we can bring in examples, like headers of like, you know, examples within the Renaissance, examples within seeds in the different bioregions, arts and crypto. And then
yes, yeah, I think just mind map what we've just discovered, and then we can see who wants to participate. And yeah, because this is also like a very big project, it would probably take a bit more from what everything we've discovered right now. It would need a lot more people. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It might be even worth to post something about it on the forum, in the discourse channel, to collect some more ideas.
I just created my first topic on that forum, stating magazine of seeds, creating seeds magazine with, and then to be completed by Arian.
Perfect.
Arian, you're very much invited to go there and put your ideas.
Cool.
Is it Arian? Is it Arian? How do you pronounce your name actually?
I pronounce it Arian, but I'm totally cool in the English language to just let it flow and make call it Arian. Yeah.
I will try to do it justice, Arian.
Okay.
Arian.
So I'm going to start inviting people back, and then we can share in the main room what came up.
Okay.
Mm.
Cool.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, hey. You didn't manage
Hi.
to join the rooms.
I did, but I felt like mine was mostly.
Oh, I didn't hear you.
This had fallen.
Oh.
Yeah, so I managed to do it, but now I'm taking some time to reflect and write on those topics.
Do I just close our rooms? I guess, right?
Yeah, I'd say so. That way people are forced to come
60
back.
seconds, yeah.
I guess I left a little early.
I'm gonna share this, but no, that's not gonna work. Wait, no. I'll share the other one. Everybody's not back. Sharing a link. Oh, but yeah.
They're coming in 20 seconds.
Okay. Sorry, I'm impatient. For the ones already here, I shared the link for the forum. I don't know if everyone has access to it, or if you have to be invited or anything. Boop. Sharing again for the people who just arrived. The link for our forum, for the storytelling space in our forum.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. We have a couple of minutes to maybe quickly share some key thoughts that came up, or if you managed to make any progress and you'd like to share with the others. Michael?
Great. So a quick summary from our group. I started off setting the framework, which is the huge opportunity that's coming for seeds. And the opportunity comes from the corporate space because for various reasons, they are very soon going to be put under a huge amount of pressure to meet ESG goals. ESG is environmental and social governance goals, similar to SDGs, but I won't bore you with the details about it, but very soon they are going to be put under huge pressure to meet certain goals. And if we position ourselves correctly, seeds are the providers of the service that will help them achieve that, because the solutions that will be given to most CEOs is do this, this, and this, and they're going to say, well, I can't do it because it impacts my shareholder, the return to my shareholders. So we position ourselves as an outsource arm for corporates, and the key then is to create a flow between them, but not a direct funding, fiat to fiat. So a corporate will never ever fund directly a seeds project. They'll instead fund a liquidity pool and So there's lots of detail around that. But the key thing that came out of our group is how we now focus that story at that kind of level, that it has real societal impact. It's no longer a focus on how do I get my little seeds project funded, which is an important part of it, but how does this seeds project fit into the greater scheme of what's unfolding in society? So we become solution providers to corporates rather than change the world activists doing a small thing here in a seeds project. Hopefully that's a succinct enough summary. If anybody else wants to jump in from our group, that would be great. Thanks.
Thank you, Michael.
Really good news.
Does somebody from the other group want to share something? A little summary for the flow guys.
I could do that. We were in the case studies, and yeah, first we were like looking for case studies because I don't have any myself, but I've asked some members who are in the Haifa movement and at the beginning, and there are also like some people like Franz and someone else who are doing the work already, and it just would be good to just bring all these stories together and present them in a kind of magazine. And then we are also having like wider ideas of how to make it more graspable and attainable for people. And some people don't really like the whole digital technological part of it. And it also like, it's not really a case if I'm sitting on my computer. So case stories tell about real stories in the physical world. And we were thinking like a magazine could be a physical copy. And then we even had the idea of physical seed bills. So we could just pass it out and people could use it without having all the digital ideas behind. And as soon as it's something physical, we create a story. And this we can talk about. And I think that, and also Javier also talked about some case studies of people he talked to who are not in the seeds movement, but who embody the spirit. And this is also something we can feature in the magazine, which would also create like flow to other movements and make us more known. Yes.
Thanks, Arian. I think the ground has been made fertile for, at least for these two topics, to start developing. And I encourage everyone to then form little groups asynchronously on Discord, come together and start building these stories. Before we round up, I'd like you to share the new time scheduling link with you, because we've been thinking of moving our meeting a bit later on Wednesdays to accommodate people on the other side of the Atlantic. So I put in a certain date, that's next Wednesday, but think of it as like a generic Wednesday and when you would be available. And if you can just click on all the times when you're available, then we'll see which time would be the best.
Just a point to make about the when to meet. It'll ask you to give a name and a password. I just use the same one for every time I use when to meet. It makes it really easy, because if you've got 2 or 3 and if other people are using it, then it makes it super simple. But what you'll see is on the right-hand side is the availability. When you put your name in and choose a password and press OK, you'll see another one which is gray on the left-hand side. And it's the gray one that you put your times into. And then you can hover over the one on the right and see who's available when, as it starts to fill up, which can be useful to see when people are available, if that's helpful.
Thanks, Bongi, for clarifications. Bye, Javier.
Bye. Sorry, guys. Love you.
Okay, so that's it for now. Does anybody have anything else to share before we say goodbye?
If I can just add, I might think that the thematic of shadow money and the renaissance of the idea of art as it was like spreaded, it might be I mean, it's kind of connected idea, because if we are it's touching. It's not. It's connected, because like if we are going into the direction of renaissancing the meaning of art and transcending from that ego perspective, our connection with the money and what money presents to the artists, and that like fully need for the money, it's kind of is a part of that story. So what my idea was, it doesn't need to be one circle per se, but maybe for the beginning, so we don't like spread a lot of circles, and it's a thematic, both thematics that I'm interested in personally. Maybe for the beginning I can make like one space for that, so people can join, we talk, and if it naturally sees that it needs to be like spreaded, we spread it.
Yeah, absolutely. Feel free to create a little group. Even you can start from a thread on the forum and see, you know, what people add to it and what could come out of it eventually. I think that's a good start.
Cool.
Okay. Oh, we have one more minute. But if no one has anything else to say, then we can just say goodbye. Thanks for coming.
Nikki. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Enjoy your days.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you to
Bye,
Melanie
everyone.
for highlighting that Reinventing Organizations Illustrated.
With pleasure.
Pictures. I'm like, wow, such a good resource.
Yeah, it makes it easier to communicate if you do it in that way. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Ciao, ciao.
Jesus. Bye.